Right, we're online. Hello, I'm Councillor Steve Walls, Chair of the Royal Wootton Bassett Neighbourhood Plan Working Group. Thank you for joining this webinar where you can ask questions of our consultant from DLP and myself. I've also got Councillor Steve Bucknell here with me, who's a very experienced councillor. Please type your questions as indicated. We do not have time to answer all questions. Answers will be available to view online. This is the background. Royal Wootton Bassett is a wonderful place to live and work. Our town council is committed to ensuring that future growth in the area reflects the wishes and needs of the community. The plan provides a clear ambition and strategy, empowering our residents to shape the future of our town together. During the consultation period, we'll encourage you to read the plan and provide any feedback either online or in person at events or through the website. We'd like to thank the Neighbourhood Plan Working Group made up of councillors, community members, town council staff, and our consultant DLP, who worked hard over a number of years. So let's get started. Abigail, we've got a first question.
Oh, thanks very much, Steve. Abby, do you want to get to the next slide?
Of course, indeed, yeah.
Thanks, everyone. And I think Steve's just covered it, but yeah, so myself, I'm Kirsten Ward. I'm a director at DLP Planning, and I'm joined by my colleague Abigail Upton, and we'll be talking you through some of the background to the neighbourhood plan, how we got to where we are today, and what the plan contains. We'll provide a brief overview of that, and then we'll provide an opportunity for questions and answers at the end. Next slide, please, Abby. Right, so as I've said, yeah, we'll provide an overview of the neighbourhood plan. We'll then provide a brief run through of the draft policies that are contained within the plan, as well as the proposed site allocations. We'll then run through the process of the Regulation 14 consultation, which is the stage that we're currently in, and we'll explain a bit about how you can get involved. And then we'll finish off with what the next steps in the process are. And then, as I've mentioned, some opportunity for questions and answers at the end. So yeah, if you can type any questions that you do have into the Q&A box, there should be an option for that at the top of your screen. And then we'll run through those at the end of the session. Thanks, Abby. Right, so just to briefly explain what a neighbourhood plan is, for those of you who aren't aware. So the concept of neighbourhood planning was first introduced in the Localism Act in 2011. The idea was that it would give local communities an opportunity to influence the future of places where they live. It's essentially a document that forms part of the local development plan and sets out the planning policies that are used by the local planning authority when they are considering planning applications. It can also identify and allocate specific sites which are considered suitable for future development for a variety of uses, such as homes or businesses. The neighbourhood plan is a plan that's prepared by the local community, so not the local planning authority. Although throughout the process we have worked alongside Wiltshire Council to gather their inputs and to ensure that the neighbourhood plan aligns with the strategic policies that are in the current local plan and also in the emerging Wiltshire local plan as well. So neighbourhood plans, they help to ensure that the right type of development is approved in the right locations, and it sets the priorities for the development of the local area. The Royal Wootton Bassett Neighbourhood Plan, if it's approved following referendum, it will then form part of the statutory development plan for Royal Wootton Bassett, and that is alongside the National Planning Policy Framework, or the NPPF, which is the policy framework that's set by central government. And it also sits alongside the current Wiltshire local plan, and if it's adopted, the emerging Wiltshire local plan when that comes into force. So then these documents as a whole provide the policies against which future planning applications will be assessed. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of the stages that we've gone through so far in order to get to where we are today, the Regulation 14 consultation stage. So the the Royal Wootton Bassett Neighbourhood Plan is a review of the currently adopted neighbourhood plan, which covered the period 2017 to 2026. The initial public consultation stage, which was undertaken to identify the key issues that could be addressed through the neighbourhood plan review, that was undertaken in 2020. And then that was followed by a further consultation on the draft vision and objectives that are in the plan, which was undertaken in 2021. And there was also a call for sites exercise where people were asked to put forward any sites that they felt might be suitable for allocation in the neighbourhood plan. And that was undertaken in 2021 as well. There was a slight pause in the proceedings during COVID, which sort of slowed the process down a little bit. But since then, we've sort of sped ahead with preparing the draft neighbourhood plan and preparing all the evidence that has informed the policies within it, some of which we'll touch on today. And then we're now at what's called the Regulation 14 consultation stage, which is the opportunity for members of the public or any interested parties to comment on any aspect of the draft plan and all of the supporting documents. And we'll provide further detail on how you can comment on those later in the presentation. All of these comments that are received will be taken into consideration and will form the final submission version of the neighbourhood plan. Next slide, please, Abby. So I think I've basically touched on this actually. So we are currently at the Regulation 14 consultation stage, which is required under the Neighbourhood Plan Regulations 2012. There is an 8-week consultation period, which is from the 29th of September was when it officially started, and it will run through till midnight on the 23rd of November. So you have until then to submit any comments. As I've mentioned before, you can comment on any aspect of the draft plan, the policies within it, or the supporting documents and evidence. And then these comments will be taken into consideration as part of the final submission version of the plan, which will then proceed to a further Regulation 16 consultation and then an examination process following that. Thanks, Abby. Next slide. So the main documents that you can comment on are the draft neighbourhood plan itself and the policy map, which sets out the policies for the area and identifies the areas to which those policies relate, such as site allocations or proposed local green space designations, for example. The other core documents that you can comment on include the design guidance document, which is referenced in a number of the plan policies, and also the modification statement, which is a document that's required because this is a review of an existing neighbourhood plan, and this document sets out the changes that have been made to that previously adopted plan. The other published background documents that form part of the earlier plan preparation stages and the evidence gathering stages have also been published, and these are listed here. So, for example, we have evidence that was used to support the local green space designations and also the heritage asset designations. Next slide, please, Abby. And then this is a continuation of the previous list. So there's quite a lot of documents that have come together to form the evidence base to support the policies within the plan. All of the documents that are listed here are available to download and view from the Town Council website. But if you need any guidance on how to find the information that you're looking for, if you do want to delve into any of these in further detail, and you're not sure where to find the information, then please feel free to drop us an email and we can point you in the right direction. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Abigail, who is going to talk you through the policies and vision and objectives of the plan. Thanks, Abby.
Thanks, Kirsten. As you can see on the screen, the draft plan sets out a vision for Royal Wootton Bassett, which extends until 2038, which is the end of this draft plan's period. As you can see, the vision sets out the aspirations for Royal Wootton Bassett to be a thriving market town. The plan then draws down the vision into objectives. These objectives relate to various matters, including the town's independent market town identity, access to facilities in a sustainable manner, well-planned housing, conservation of the natural environment, sustainable economic growth, the prioritisation of sustainable patterns of living, the support for reducing through traffic through the town, the provision of appropriate infrastructure to support new development, the improvement of the town's relationship with Swindon, and the support for the development of a new railway station. I'll now provide an overview of our policies, but if you get the chance, please do download a copy of the plan to read these in more detail. In terms of policies, the plan has set out numerous policies. Policies 1 to 3 focus on the town centre to ensure new development respect the local character. Policies 4 to 8 focus on design and sustainability. Here, specific support is outlined for net zero developments, and policies 9 to 12 support the protection of the natural environment. Here, the draft plan has proposed the allocation of 28 local green spaces, which are shown on the following map. As shown on the map, these are the 28 local green spaces. These sites have been identified as green spaces which are of particular importance to the local community. The designation protects them from new development and affords them similar protection of a greenbelt designation. Policy 13 focuses on the historic environment. Here, non-designated heritage assets are defined. These 10 assets are identified on the map on screen. Here, this designation outlines that these sites are deemed to have a degree of historic significance. In terms of housing development, policies 14 to 16 focus on the mix and affordability of housing to ensure the needs of the town are met. Policies 17 to 18 focus on employment and tourism, with the plan supporting the promotion of sustainable tourism. In terms of brownfield development, Policy 19 outlines support for such redevelopment as long as they respect the local character and are well designed. Policy 20 provides guidance of how applications for development outside of the settlement boundary will be assessed. And policies 21 to 24 focus on infrastructure and facilities within the town, whereby the retention of existing community facilities are supported. I'll now pass over to my colleague Kirsten to discuss the draft site allocation process.
Thanks, Abby. So the neighbourhood plan, it's proposing to allocate 4 sites in order to meet the housing requirement for the neighbourhood plan area, which is currently set at 150 dwellings over the plan period. And this is the figure that is provided by Wiltshire Council, and it's also included within the emerging Wiltshire local plan. By including housing site allocations within the neighbourhood plan, this meets the requirements for additional protection under paragraph 14 of the NPPF. So this means that in cases where Wiltshire Council is unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, any applications for development which come forward in the neighbourhood plan area that are not on allocated sites will, during that period, be considered to have a significant adverse impact, and therefore would be far less likely to be approved. So basically, it promotes sites that are the allocations over sites which aren't allocated. The process of identifying sites has involved multiple stages of consultation and evidence gathering, and some of these are listed here, so I'll just run through the process that we've adopted. So the call for sites, as I've previously mentioned, this gave people the opportunity to submit potential sites for allocation, and this ran between the 15th of August and the 5th of September 2022. The next stage, once we'd gathered all of those sites together, was the site identification and assessment stage. So during this stage, we prepared a comprehensive report, which you could download from the website. So that detailed the long list of 28 sites. It also set out the process by which each of the sites was assessed. Then that was used to determine whether the sites were suitable and available for development. And we also set out in that report the assessment outcomes and a recommended short list of sites. We then undertook some further engagement with the landowners and with Wiltshire Council, and this allowed for clarifications from the landowners on aspects related to site suitability and availability. And then this was followed by a further landowner meeting in February 2024, following which we developed a short list of 4 sites, which are the sites that are currently included in the draft neighbourhood plan. These sites have also been through a process of viability assessment, which was conducted by Bailey Venning Associates in January 2024. And that process concluded that all of the 4 sites proposed for inclusion in the neighbourhood plan were considered to be viable when assessed against the emerging policies in the neighbourhood plan and also in the current and emerging Wiltshire local plan as well. Next slide, please, Abby. So policies 24 to 28 in the plan outline the 4 proposed site allocations, which will meet the neighbourhood plan's housing requirement over the plan period. These sites are allocated for both residential dwellings and also specialist older people's accommodation. And you can see a summary of the sites and the site capacities here. But if we go to the next slide, please, Abby, I'll just run through the sites in a bit more detail. So the first site we have is the land at Stoneover Lane. So this site is proposed to be allocated for residential use for up to 42 dwellings. And there are some further policy criteria which any application that came forward on that site would need to adhere to, which are set out within the policy wording in the plan. So you can take a look at those and see what other requirements are set out there in terms of delivery on that site. Next slide, please, Abby. And then we have the second site allocation, which is RWB2, and this is at Garabrecken, Brinkworth Road. So this is the site which is proposed to be allocated for a residential care home or nursing home of up to 64 beds, or alternatively for up to 36 specialist older persons housing units, such as sheltered accommodation or extra care housing, which could be accommodated on this site. Slide, please. And the third proposed allocation is site RWB3, and this is land at Templars Way. And this is proposed to be allocated for residential use for up to 95 dwellings. And this site, as some of you might be aware, is currently subject to a planning application for this number of units. Then next slide, please. Then we have site RWB4, which is the 4th proposed allocation, and this is land north of Whitehill Lane, and this is proposed to be allocated for residential use for up to 80 dwellings. Thanks, Abby. Slide. And so we have here, this is what is currently contained in Appendix 2 of the draft neighbourhood plan, and this is the overarching policy map, which shows the location of the proposed site allocations, all of the local green spaces, and the non-designated heritage assets are all shown on this plan, along with some other designations and constraints. Next slide, please, Abby. Right, so in terms of the consultation, which is, as I've mentioned, currently ongoing, we have got some further consultation events which are coming up shortly. We've got a public consultation event this Saturday at the Memorial Hall, and that's taking place from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. And there will be a number of representatives there from the Town Council, and myself will also be there. So we'll be available to answer any particular questions that you might have. We'll also have some copies of the draft plan available and some comment forms, which you can fill in when you're there if you want to. There is also another consultation event on Monday, the 3rd of November at the library between 3:30 and 6:30 in the afternoon. So we also have the consultation documents and copies of the comments forms, which are available to view at Manor House on Limekiln, and also the Wootton Bassett Library at Borough Fields as well. Thanks, Abby. In terms of how you can submit your comments, there's a number of ways that you can do this. Our preferred method would probably be if you could complete an online version of the comments form, which is a Google form with various comment boxes and tick boxes that you can complete. So it's quite easy to fill that in. And you can find a link to that on the Town Council website. You can also download a PDF version, which you can print out yourself and complete, and then email that to the address that's shown there. So planning@royalwottonbassett.gov.uk, or you can email your comments directly to that address. Or alternatively, as I've mentioned, there are some paper copies of the comments form available, and you can return those to the Town Council office at Manor House. Although please just take, if you're doing that, please take note of the opening time.
Right, Kirsten, Abigail, thank you for that. Very comprehensive description. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, you can hear you, yeah.
Perfect. I think Kirsten's having a few internet connection
Right, yeah.
issues. I just want you to run through in terms of next steps.
Yeah.
So all comments received through the consultation will be reviewed. If you wish to scan the QR code in the top corner, that will allow you to view the document and also give you further information of how to respond, which Kirsten has already run through. Following the review of all the consultation comments received, changes and amendments to the plan will be made where necessary. And then after that, the final submission version of the plan will then be submitted to Wiltshire Council. That will then lead on to the final stage of consultation, which will happen before the plan being submitted to an independent examiner. The plan will then be examined and any necessary modifications will be made. And then a referendum on the plan will be held, and if successful, that is when the plan will be adopted as part of the statutory development plan. So please submit all your comments by the 23rd of November. We'll now move on to the Q&A, so please feel free to add any comments into the question box.
Okay, have we got any comments so far?
I can't see any so far.
I don't know whether anybody's seen the plan. We're very pleased with it. We think it's a very attractive looking document. And thank you to Kirsten and Abigail for all your work, which has been for several years. And I can't emphasize how much work there has been.
Feels like an achievement getting to this stage in the process. So well done, everybody.
Yes, a lot of people have had involvement, going back to taking photographs about several years ago and wandering around the town looking at sites and all sorts of things.
Whilst we're waiting for any questions or comments, just from my point of view, it's worth pointing out that the site on Marlborough Road, which is one of the allocated housing sites, that has been subject to a planning application, which now has planning permission for the 90-something houses. So the site owners there, the applicants, have slightly jumped the gun, but it's shown that it is an achievable site.
I've just seen we have one question. I'll quickly read it out now. So the question is, as the Wiltshire housing targets have changed since the incoming government took power in 2024, is the reference in the draft to a housing needs assessment of October 2022 and the neighbourhood area housing requirement of 150 dwellings still valid?
So sorry, Steve, did you want to take this one?
No, you carry on.
I was just going to say, so the 150 dwellings is the figure that was provided to us by Wiltshire Council, and that is still the figure that's in their emerging local plan, which is being examined under the previous NPPF, I believe, before the the new standard method calculations came in. So it will be the 150 units.
Sorry,
which is still the requirement, but we'll take account of anything that's been sort of developed in that time. So that requirement might change slightly, but that's the figure that we've been provided with and that we're working towards.
Indeed, in fact, we put an additional site in to ensure that it really complied with the local plan.
Correct. We've not had any others, Abby.
Just to say that after this session, this will be online. People can watch this again.
Yeah, it's been recorded. This session is, so if there's anybody who wants to view it afterwards again, or if they want to pass on the recording to anybody, it will be available through the I believe on the Town Council's YouTube channel, but the link will be provided on the Town Council Neighbourhood Plan website, so you'll be able to view it via that link. And if you do think of any other questions, if they come to you after this session, then feel free to email them to the planning@royalwottonbassett.gov.uk email address, and we can respond to those directly to you.
And you have to the 23rd of November. I have to emphasise it.
So please do submit your comments. We'd like to hear them. Oh, I believe we've got a hand up from Barry Taylor. Don't know if we can allow you to allow Mike. I think you should be able to speak out. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Barry, one of the councillors. I would just like to encourage any of the attendees to this webinar to actually let their neighbours and friends know that this is available for review. It is important for them, and the point of the consultation is to get your comments. So everyone, please do share the links and tell everyone to view this webinar. Thank you very much.
Especially as this document is going to be relevant until about 2038, so really should get engaged with it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Unless we've got any more questions.
Just seeing 2 questions appear.
Okay, yep.
There's one question in terms of funding, in terms of how have the consultants been paid for this plan, in terms of where that funding has come from.
Well, quite simply, we budgeted for it over the last few years, and certainly it is out of the council tax from the town council. But I must emphasise, having this neighbourhood plan would mean we get SIL money, which is money. It's infrastructure levy. 25% of that will come to the town. If we didn't have a neighbourhood plan, it would be only 15%, and that would be tens of thousands of pounds we'd lose. Apart from the fact this document will give us strength in any proposed planning of the town, and when it goes to Wiltshire Council, they have to take account of this. It also gives us funding for various aspects of things in the town, like we want to have a new skate park. That's the sort of thing we could fund out of it. Yes, Steve, you want to say that?
Yeah, we also had a little bit of funding from grants as well for this process. So not all of the costs of it came out of the precept. But as Steve said, it was budgeted for, and it's an important part of what we do. So it was, as far as we're concerned, the right way. We have to budget for it. We have to do it properly.
Thank you. There's another question which is querying whether alternative sites, as opposed to the 4 currently draft allocated in the plan, could be put forward.
Not at this stage. We went through about 28 possible sites, I think. And these are the most viable ones, frankly.
Yeah, as I think I set out on one of the slides, there was quite a comprehensive staged process where we did have started off with a very long list of sites, which, as Steve mentioned, was about 28 sites that came through both the call for sites process, and we looked at sites that had been put forward to the Wiltshire local plan as well, that weren't selected for allocation in the local plan, but we considered whether those might be small enough to be suitable for allocation in the neighbourhood plan. So that formed the 28 that were within the long list of sites. But if you want to review those, the long list, there are those are available as one of the documents that you can download, which I think is the site identification and assessment report. They're detailed within that report.
Thank you. Another question I can see is, do you have to live in Royal Wootton Bassett in order to make comment on the plan?
No, you don't. It's the consultation is open to anyone who has connections to the area. So whether that's people who live, work, or use the town's facilities. So it's anybody who has an interest really in the town is able to comment. Although I should say that you wouldn't be eligible to vote in the referendum unless you're registered to vote within the neighbourhood plan area. But you can submit comments prior to that stage. I think we do have another hand up. I'll allow your microphone if you'd like to speak. Sorry, apologies, I can't see your name. The screen's too small. Mary, if you'd like to unmute yourself, I think you should be able to.
Mary Champion, I think.
No, it's Mary.
Yeah.
Oh,
She might still be muted, but
You are muted.
can I try? Oh,
I think you should be able to unmute your microphone, Mary, if you can. Or if you want to type your question into the Q&A box, feel free to do that.
Chat is tuned.
Okay. Not sure if you're still there, Mary, but can't hear you. If you're trying to speak.
we're still waiting for the.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kirsten, can you unmute her remotely or not?
I have done that, yeah. So she should be able to unmute and speak. Enable the microphone. Okay. If you'd like to email us your comment or question, Mary, feel free to do so. Apologies, we can't hear you.
See, there's another question that has been raised in terms of, could we confirm how many dwellings are required in Royal Wootton Bassett before 2038, and do these include the sites that's already got planning at Templars Way?
So it's
1300.
The neighbourhood plan requirement is 150.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that includes those that have already been consented at on Marlborough Road at Templars Way.
Yeah, the local plan was about 1300, wasn't it?
Yeah, but the neighbourhood plan requirement is
Yeah.
150.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in other words, with the 90 that have been consented on Marlborough Road, that leaves us with a requirement to show another 60.
Yeah.
Can you? I'll ask a question then. The Galbreton site, there's a an allocation there for a care home of 64 beds.
Mm.
Do those 64 beds count as 64 dwellings as far as housing numbers are concerned?
No, they don't. So we,
36 or
so
something.
yeah, there's a multiplier that you use, which is set by government that they use when local authorities do their housing completion returns. And we've applied that ratio, and I think it gives the figure of
36.
36, yeah, which is the dwelling equivalent figure. Yeah.
As I said, you can't think of a question now, you can always submit it later. Well, thank you for spending part of your evening with us. Anyway, it's very good to see you online.
Thanks everybody for joining.
Yeah.
We've not had any further questions, have we, Abby?
I think there is just one more, which is a question whether, in terms of the funding that's gone into this plan, whether that's something that will be able to be shared publicly at all.
It's part of the. You will be able to see the finances, the budget for the town council. There's a line for the neighbourhood plan. And just to say, don't forget Saturday in the Memorial Hall, 10 till 2. Number of us will be there to answer your questions. You can see all these plans in great detail, and perhaps it might be a lot easier for you to sort of understand what's going on. But I'd really like to see you there.
Thanks, Steve. Don't have any more questions. Are we happy to wrap up?
There's just one more question. I've just seen it's come through. Sorry. How many dwellings are assumed for the Brinkworth Road site?
So that's the
Garrabracken.
Yeah, so it's 36 dwelling equivalents, which is roughly equivalent to a 64 bedroom care home, but we've set it as sort of an either or, depending on what form of development is put forward on that site. Are there any more, Abby? Oh, sorry, Steve.
I'll ask a prompting question then. Bearing in mind the 90 that have been granted consent, if as a result of this neighbourhood plan we are looking to allocate, or that the allocations total more than 150, is it feasible, possible that as part of this next process, one of the existing sites which is shown as allocated could be withdrawn from the plan? Is that something that could happen?
It could potentially happen. It depends how the examiner views the requirement at that stage, and I think it might also be influenced partly by what happens in the local plan examination process as well. What's sort of going on there in terms of if they issue an updated sort of land supply or commitment figure for Royal Wootton Bassett, it might be impacted by that. I should probably say though that the National Planning Policy Framework says that neighbourhood plans can allocate more sites if they want to. So that is set out in national planning policy. So if we feel that there is a need for those houses over a sort of a longer period, then that could be included. They could still be included in the neighbourhood plan, but it will be assessed by the independent inspector at the neighbourhood plan examination stage as well. So yeah,
Would putting these additional houses in just strengthen the plan? That I think that's the reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
I can see there's another question which is asked, what about areas like Binknell Lane, which is apparently been applied for planning permission, whether that would be possible in terms of a site allocation?
No, I think that, but yeah, I think that's the one that's south of the site that's been given permission, I think.
Yeah, I think they're probably referring to the David Wilson Homes site, the 410 houses, which was a site that was allocated in the draft local plan and has now been consented. So sites that are allocated in the draft local plan, we cannot double allocate them or double count them in the neighbourhood plan. So what we have to allocate is in addition to whatever is allocated on the local plan. That's why, for instance, land on Maple Drive is not in this neighbourhood plan, is because it is an allocated site in the emerging local plan. So no, we can't allocate the Vinyl Lane site because it's already been allocated and indeed consented.
Thank you. I can see, I know we've got someone with their hand up, but there's just one other question that's just come through, which is why would we want to offer more sites than required?
I think that we're right at 150, but it's we're encouraged to put an additional one in to ensure that we have this viable site, we strengthen the plan. I think that's what the question is.
The danger is if we don't allocate enough, and as you've said, if the required allocation increases from 150 upwards and we have not allocated more than 150, we could end up having sites come forward which we're not happy with, which we're not prepared to see allocated. So it's a bit of a gamble to take a lot of houses out of the neighbourhood plan. If you take too many out, you could put yourself into a risk position of opening up a free-for-all if our target is increased by central government.
Yes, we advise to put in this additional site.
Thanks, Steve. I think we do have a hand up now. Barry Taylor, would you like to speak?
Hi, always Councillor Taylor again. I just wanted to clarify that there are obviously talks about a Coppard Hall development and also another site alongside the Sally Pussy going up to Stoneover Lane, and those are outside the parish boundary, so those are not included in our remit. I don't know if Steve would like to say any more on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, the one at Coppard Hall, the Midge Farm, is a site which is in any event allocated in the emerging local plan, Wiltshire's local plan, as is the site behind Liddell, also allocated in the Wiltshire Council's emerging local plan. The other site you're referring to, Barry, opposite Stoneover Lane, next to the Churchill, effectively, that's come from nowhere. It's not allocated in the emerging local plan, and you're absolutely right, it's outside of the parish boundary. So although we could be a consultee on it if an application did come forward, we have no power to make any policies over it in terms of the neighbourhood plan. So it's not something that we can influence in that regard.
Thanks, Steve.
Right, any more questions?
I can see there's a question which is, what is the benefit of the neighbourhood plan and how it relates to the local plan?
Well, the benefit is a snapshot of how we want the town to be and how we want it to develop. And Steve, you probably wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I think there are two major benefits from my point of view. One is if we didn't have a neighbourhood plan, when planning applications are submitted to Wiltshire Council going forward, there's no additional layer of policy background in terms of policies that we as a town council and we as a neighbourhood, people voting on this one, consulted on this one and voting on this one, there would be no way that we could have our views put forward on the neighbourhood plan level. So if we have a neighbourhood plan, we can to some extent influence consents that are granted. We can limit to a certain extent where housing goes. It is only to a certain extent though. And then the other great benefit of having a neighbourhood plan is if we've got a neighbourhood plan in place, when community infrastructure levy money is charged to developers, we get 25% coming directly to us as a town council. If we do not have a neighbourhood plan in place, it's only 15%. And of course, that is so long as Wiltshire Council remember to charge it. And it's something that we are keeping a very strong eye on in future, making sure they don't make the same mistake as they made at the Grove Farm development. So those are the two main benefits. One is we have some control through the neighbourhood plan. We have some control over future development. Not as much control as we'd like, but some control. And secondly, we get more community infrastructure levy money out of it.
I think planning applications in the town, Wiltshire Council did take serious account of the last neighbourhood plan for most of the sites there, and reflected the town's view. I think, is it 26 out of 29 sites which I've seen in the brief that he put there. So it is important, this plan. It is something that the town can show how it wants to develop and what facilities we need, but retaining the character of the town as well, with all the background work we've done. And I hope everybody would have a look at all the documents and see all the work that's gone in, and appreciate that we are working very hard to ensure the town remains an extremely nice place to live.
And rest assured, as councillors, we wouldn't have put in the considerable amount of work that Steve and others have put in over the last few years. We wouldn't have done that unless we felt it was absolutely necessary and something that was going to be of a benefit to us. We wouldn't waste our time on something that was not necessary.
Thank you.
Just to say, I came here 38 years ago, and looking for, I just rode through the town. This is a really nice place, I thought, and I was absolutely right.
Thank you, Steve. I can just see one more question, which is any comments regarding the need for new infrastructure requirements as a result of the new housing north of Swindon Road?
No, I mean, this is obviously the major aspects, and especially junction 16 is something as concern about additional traffic, and obviously people will be raising things like schools and doctors' surgeries. I think at the moment we have enough capacity for school children for the next few years, but obviously it's not about doctors' surgeries, these doctors will probably need. But as regard to additional traffic, yes, this is a concern, I think, from all of us. I don't know whether Kirsten or Abigail, you having anything to add to that?
I think just to say that we're aware that this is something that is being considered through the Wiltshire Local Plan examination that's currently ongoing. So it should hopefully, any issues should be, in theory, addressed through that process. In relation to the major strategic allocations that have been proposed in for Wootton Bassett as part of the local plan.
I can see another question that has come through, and it says, if the draft local plan is rejected or altered such that one of its sites falls away, could we then include that site in the neighbourhood plan?
I think that's a question for the expert.
Yeah. Would we want to?
Yeah, I think it's the scale of those allocations really, because in theory it should be the strategic sort of larger scale allocations that are allocated through the local plan, and the neighbourhood plan should allocate non-strategic allocations, which tend to be smaller scale. There isn't actually a definition anywhere in policy terms of what is strategic and non-strategic, so it is a little bit of a blurred line. But I'd consider looking at the scale of quite a lot of the proposed allocations in the local plan are quite significantly larger than what we're currently proposing through the neighbourhood plan. So I wouldn't imagine that it would be appropriate for those to be allocated in the neighbourhood plan.
The only one I can think of that might cross that threshold from strategic and large into a less strategic and a smaller one is the land on Maple Drive.
Yeah.
And of the sites that have been allocated in the draft local plan, that's the only one that is actually within our parish boundary, within the neighbourhood plan area anyway. So the Liddell site and the Midge Hall site, they're not within our parish boundary. We couldn't allocate them even if we had the power to, because they're not in our parish. But Maple Drive, yes, we could do if we wanted to. I'm not sure why we'd want to, though. If they were taken out of the local plan for some reason, that would probably be because they weren't deliverable, and therefore, if they're not deliverable at local plan level, they're not deliverable at neighbourhood plan level. Knowing the way that things are going at central government level in terms of the target for housing, I can't see any of the local plan sites being dropped out. Quite the reverse. I think there may be a call for more sites across the country and even more ambitious targets, but that's just my take on things. It's too late for the current local plan that's coming out to do that, but when they start negotiating on the plan after that, I suspect there will be a demand for even more housing, unfortunately.
Yeah, the Maple Drive one was originally, I think, going to be in the last neighbourhood plan, was taken out because there wasn't a need for it.
Yeah.
So they're not at all surprised if this has turned up.
I can see there's another question, which is how is Wiltshire Council's consideration of traffic levels balanced with the draft plan review, whilst the draft allocated sites are starting to receive approval?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question, and one of the things that we're going to be most interested in seeing coming out of the local plan review and the inspector's comments on it is going to be how they're squaring the circle with regard to junction 16. I don't know whether our two plan consultants on the line here have been able to delve into the detailed calculations that have been put forward by Wiltshire Council showing how junction 16 can cope with all this future development. But it's not something that we can get involved with because we can't afford the very expensive highways engineers that do the calculations. But yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah, I think that definitely falls out of my town planning area of expertise. I'm afraid it's one for the highways consultants.
Any more questions? Just to emphasise, people can watch this recording back and submit questions subsequently to the town council.
I can't see any further questions that have come through.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for turning up and asking the questions, relevant questions. I hope you see an awful lot of work going into this document, and appreciate that we think this is a good snapshot for the future, and to show how we want the town to develop and how we want to preserve the best aspects of it. And if you want to know more, of course, we've got the Memorial Hall on Saturday, and on the 3rd, I think it's Monday the 3rd of November in the library, but not to mention the fact you can always come into the Manor House and look at details.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everybody.
Oh,
Thanks,
thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Abigail. Thank you,
Thank you.
Kirsten.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Steve, for coming in. Right, and you can all go off and enjoy your evening.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, Pat.